when we talk about artificial islands, it has to be said that it's a phenomenon racing. I'm sure that all of you have seen the movie The Island of the Rose that was in Netflix not far. And it's like a kind of history, a nice history, no? Because an Italian engineering built in the Adriatic Sea an artificial island, and it has some kind of romantic view, no? When we talk about the new islands or the artificial islands that are arising now, it has to be said that it has nothing to do with that romantic point of view of the Island of the Rose. Probably the ones constructed by some countries, and specifically the ones constructed by the People's Republic of China in the South China Sea, are a set of gains for this country. Definitely, they do not respect the international law. We cannot talk about the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, because it is clear that maybe it's a kind of empty non-regulation of this situation, but it has to be said that all of the problems talking about these artificial islands involves more and more important things. This consequence of the building of these islands in the South China Sea has raised the tension of the region, according with the problems and the situation between neighbor states. These consequences had repercussions on international competitiveness and, of course, strong economic and political tensions, also due to disputes over the limits of jurisdiction in the South China Sea. China, People's Republic of China, is trying to resolve within the stakeholders of the area, but in my opinion, it is not acceptable, because we live in a more and more globalized world, and we should arrive and find a solution between the whole international community. Of course, it is not only a question of economic exclusive area or zone, but the control of huge maritime routes and huge natural resources. This problem has three dimensions. Of course, economic dimension. One of the most important islands are built to try to gain access to oil or other mineral resources in the sea platform. There are cases in Abu Dhabi, in Upper Zakum Island, where they were constructed to access to oil platforms. Strategical and geographical or geopolitical problems or dimension is also very important. We cannot doubt that the militarization of the bases, it can be seen when it starts some years ago. People's Republic of China and the entire propaganda are doing a specific job to try to give the islands a military and a global component, talking about what Professor Spaliu said about the 11 dashes line that China is asking for after the Second World War. Finally, of course, these islands can also be a part of missile or airports or other important military structures that, it has to be said, are a threat to the area. Finally, the maritime dimension, it is also important, because the control of this area, it has to be said, that has to have an important role. And of course, the maritime dimension is not clear, but probably it is also having a great problem with this situation. China is using three dimensions, as it was said. according to the United Nations Conference of the Law of the Sea, the freedom of navigation starts after 12 nautical miles of the territory and includes, of course, the economic area and the high sea. And this freedom of navigation is applicable to merchant ships, warships, and aircraft. And China is not accepting this freedom of the seas, this maritime, let's say, freedom in this area. So definitely it is a threat for the rest of the people. Global commons and any countries can access them, as it said. For instance, there are islands, artificial islands, only 125 nautical miles from Palawan in the Philippines Islands, which is also a question that is very important. It's not acceptable, in my point of view, that China restricts other countries the freedom of the high seas in the sea, South China Sea. When we talk about the 11 to 9 dashes campaign after the World War, the 9 dashes, as you can see in the photos, it is almost the whole sea, China Sea. And it is not really a question of sovereignty. It is a question, an aspect that, it has to be said, is causing a not really comfortable position to the rest of the countries. Well, let's continue. For instance, the 9 dashes area in the South China Sea, it's 90% of the waters of the South China Sea. And it's specific and simple data that it gives no doubt about what is happening. Of course, United Nations Conference of the Law of the Sea, signed in Jamaica in 1982, probably, as we will see in the conclusions, needs a kind of reformation and needs to include more important things about what is happening in relation with this kind of artificial islands. Okay? China actions regarding the construction of artificial islands have managed to raise tension in the area, as I said. The Association of Nations of the Southeast Asia has shown its disagreement with this problem. And China has used ships to remove all the sea platform to build this island, not respecting at all of the coral reefs that are in the area and all of the sea platform that, it has to be said, we may find also for the future as a point of view with the ecological situation. And it has to be said, we can manage this ecological point of view to try to manage a better future and a better solution for this problem of the artificial islands. At the regional level, all these South China Sea islands represents a large dispute, but there are also a lot of allies, well, not a lot, but quite a lot of allies in the South China Sea that they are probably not seeing this as a threat. And probably this kind of, let's say, friendship between this government may cause probably a worse situation with other countries that do not have the same kind of friendship relation with these countries. This is a very important sea. The South China Sea is probably, without any doubt, around of the 20% of the economic flow in international trade, which is really a huge data. China interests are clear. Whether trade or military, artificial islands are a set of gains, a great set of gains, and represents also to position the People's Republic of China as the main actor of the area. It has to be said, it is also the main actor of the area, but even in a more predominant position. Demonstration preparation for a competition international by the new leadership, it is also a problem because China belongs to the permanent states of the Security Council of the United Nations. And it is also a problem that is not easy to solve because we all know how the United Nations Security Council is managing all of these situations. It is no possible solution for the moment. When we see what I've been said about United Nations Conference of the Law of the Sea, it has to be said that the conference is not treating with the importance that it has to have this problem. That's why I'm always trying to propose a kind of, let's say, probably reorganization of the Convention of the Sea to try to fix this problem. It is always important to see that without the international law and the participation of the states, it is not going to be a solution to this rising problem. You can see how they manage, for instance, in a construction of progressive formation. It starts in Mabini Reef in March 2012, and in 2 years later, the island is completely built. So they do build really quick. And of course, if we look at the kind of structures, it looks a little bit small because these are all photos, but the situation now is quite different because there are also important military constructions in this port. Well, we have to think about amending the convention as a kind of solution for the problem, or to use the environmental issue to find a possible stop of this degradation of the sea with the artificial islands built. It is clear that China has an objective liability for this problem, but there is no law that is prohibiting this situation. So, in terms of international law, we have to appeal for the Convention for the Protection of the Environment to see a final solution. Let's say that ASEAN will have an important role and should help with this problem, but definitely, as I said, after 38 years of the United Nations Conference of the Law of the Sea, a possibility has to be improved for the amendment. We are finishing now because I'm out of time, but let's find and see a little bit of the conclusions. There are a number of challenges, I'm finishing, to which countries face. Despite this, it is very useful to put a starting point and limit the behavior of the states talking about the violations of the international law. Interactions with the international system are always to obliged to, they must accept all of the international conventions. Artificial islands in South China Sea is beginning to corrupt an international scene that it is not really nice let's say, for the future of the humanity. Finally, it is important to every time that better and greater regulations should talk about this problem, and of course, the importance to safeguard international peace and security. Thank you very much.